What's going on, guys? I'm Tyler, and in this video, I'll be counting down my top 20 favorite movies of 2019. And before we begin, a very quick note that you see in every best of list: if there's something that you like that's not on here, it's either because I haven't seen it or I just didn't like it as much as you, I guess. So there, it's done. Deal with it. Now, on with the list. Number 20, Marriage Story. It's not one of the most rewatchable movies out there, but I can't deny the fact that Noah Baumbach's script and direction, Scarlett Johansson, Adam Driver, Laura Dern, and Alan Alda's performances, and Randy Newman's score make you understand just how hard it is to go for a divorce, even if you've never been through one yourself. Number 19, Jojo Rabbit. Taika Waititi did a really good job at blending comedy and drama almost seamlessly, sometimes within a split second, to portray harsh realities of war such as bigotry, race, and death that people still have a hard time dealing with to this day. And Roman Griffin Davis and Thomasin McKenzie are two child actors that I hope we see more of in the future. Number 18, Dragged Across Concrete. It is a really, really long movie at 2 hours and 40 minutes, and I will say there are a few scenes and subplots that don't really amount to much in terms of the story, but S. Craig Zoller is a filmmaker that I really admire, not just for using old-fashioned pacing and a lack of music to build tension, but very subversive and different opinions about things such as crime, race, police conduct, that I still think about to this day. Plus, Mel Gibson, Vince Vaughn, and Tori Kittles all give very subtle and understated performances that really add to the unease of the movie. Number 17, Parasite. Bong Joon-ho's satire about class and greed is both appropriately funny and intense given the situations. The characters are hilarious and cunning because of just how smart they are, and the great morals about whether or not the greedy and the poor have equal amounts of good or bad ethics is a very bold and daring opinion that we don't really see that much in Hollywood either. Number 16, Shadow. As opposed to Parasite, where it was all about a cat and mouse game between the rich and the poor, in this movie, no man or woman is safe, and every character has to use deception and wit in order to survive. The black and white production and costume design all look stunning, the fight choreography is beautiful and well choreographed, of course. And the villains are also really intimidating. You never really know what character to trust, whether or not they're as cowardly or as strong as they claim to be. It's all very complex, and it's a martial arts movie that more people need to see. Number 15, Midsommar. Yes, it is called Midsommar, according to Ari Aster, and wow, boy did I feel great about being the only single guy in the theater during this. It is like Dragged Across Concrete. It is a lot longer than I originally imagined upon rewatch. However, Florence Pugh gives her best performance of her career in a really demanding role. Astor's direction, in a much larger scale than Hereditary, is a lot more impressive the second time around. And he, as many critics have said, knows how to use psychological fear in order to scare us as opposed to just using cheap jump scares. Number 14, Fighting with My Family. I am not a wrestling fan at all, and I hate the industry itself. However, I was excited whenever there was a wrestling match, and the themes about competition and sibling rivalry are, like a lot of the movies I'm about to mention, equally funny and serious in its portrayal thanks to the cast, as well as Stephen Merchant's very subtle direction. A lot of people say his script was better than the directing, but I'd say they're just about equal. Number 13, Dolomite Is My Name. It is the perfect movie to exit a film festival on, just like I did with TIFF. In the spirit of Ed Wood and the Disaster Artist, we root for people who make really trashy entertainment, but they just want their voices to be heard. They want to express themselves artistically, and we are so glad that they want to. It was funny, it was heartfelt, and Eddie Murphy hasn't been this good in a long time. Number 12, El Camino. Yes, this is a 2-hour Breaking Bad episode, but considering Breaking Bad has always been cinematically inspired by Sergio Leone westerns and old-fashioned film noir crime movies, this movie still retains that style, and all the better for it, because in the grand scheme of things, just this movie has much more style, composition, and layers than most average crime dramas that you would get very often. And Aaron Paul has been better in this movie than he has in certain Breaking Bad seasons. He was so subdued. Much of his performance was visual with little dialogue whatsoever, and you really felt sorry for him and you wanted him to succeed in the end. And the movie also has one of the best climaxes in the final duel. Number 11, Knives Out. I was so pissed that I didn't get to see it at TIFF, but when they released it a week early, it felt good to watch the movie early anyways, and thank goodness. Daniel Craig stole every scene he was in as Benoit Blanc. Rian Johnson's script was incredibly unique and fresh and felt wholly original, even though it does use a lot of certain murder mystery tropes. And Ana de Armas was a huge surprise. After Blade Runner it was great to see her in another movie, and based on what I've seen in her filmography, she has a lot more to go. Number 10, Doctor Sleep, my favorite horror movie of the year. And I'll be honest, it takes a while for me to really appreciate Mike Flanagan movies because of his pacing and his incredible attention to character development over tension and scares. But in this movie, he's given so much scope, he's given so much good talent in Ewan McGregor, Rebecca Ferguson. I feel so bad trying to say this name, Kaylee Curan. I apologize either way. However, as someone who does enjoy The Shining, I might have enjoyed it just as much. The cinematography and the editing was also just as meticulous. Ewan McGregor was great as Danny Torrance. Rebecca Ferguson as Rose the Hat, one of my favorite villains of the year. And overall, it just accomplished something that I don't get with most horror movies. I felt scared for the characters. Number 9, Rocket Man. This was a blast for me to watch in the theaters. This movie should be the new model on how to create a musical biopic by being a song and dance musical, not just showing a bunch of cool concert sequences that really have nothing to do with the story. Taron Egerton is Oscar-worthy as Elton John. The side actors, while they don't have as much as he does to work with, they do a lot with what they can, especially Jamie Bell as Bernie Taupin and Richard Madden as John Reed, I believe. I was already a fan of Elton John, but it introduced me to so many new songs that I continue to listen to this day. Number 8, Little Women. If I had to describe what made this movie good in one word, it would be chemistry. Saoirse Ronan, Florence Pugh, Emma Watson, Timothée Chalamet, Laura Dern, Meryl Streep, Bob Odenkirk, Chris Cooper, Eliza Scanlon, I hope I said that right. They all felt like they knew each other for years prior to making this movie. And Greta Gerwig, who is a good director beforehand and a good writer beforehand, may have outdone herself here by expertly blending when to use flashbacks and when to use the present day in order to tell the story. Number 7, John Wick Chapter 3, Parabellum. This was also a blast to watch, just from the filmmaking and the behind-the-scenes standpoints of making fluid fight choreography with no shaky cam, no quick editing, little to no CGI whatsoever. There are CGI moments in the movie, and they are done expertly well. And I have to give it to Chad Stahelski as the director, Keanu Reeves as John Wick, and the side characters, old and new, who bring a lot of great new elements to an already good franchise. Number 6, Avengers Endgame. No real surprise there, but what can I say? Just like everybody, I love the fact that this was a much more story-driven Marvel movie. The fact that it wraps up so many characters' arcs as neatly and perfectly as you possibly could. Robert Downey Jr. has continued to make a great steady recovery in a much more redemptive arc for Tony Stark. It was great to see Chris Evans as Cap once again. Josh Brolin as Thanos, again, another great villain. The action scenes, even though some of them could have been filmed a little bit better and a little less CG reliant, were done so well. The last third is the return of the king of Marvel and is worth seeing it in theaters alone, and you probably already have. Really, what else can I say about Endgame that no one else hasn't? Number 5, Waves. Trey Edward Schultz might be my new favorite indie director because dude is so good at directing a movie. He knows when to tell a story only visually. He knows how to write realistic dialogue. He knows how to get very natural performances from actors, even in situations where it would seem over the top. Kelvin Harrison Jr. and Sterling K. Brown give Oscar-worthy performances. I feel so bad that I forgot the actress that plays Kelvin Harrison Jr.'s sister, but she was a huge surprise for sure. And the unique story structure that has split some people about it, I love it. I want more movies to do that. Number 4, A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, the movie that made me cry the most, twice. And that is all thanks to Matthew Rhys, Tom Hanks, Marielle Heller, the rest of the cast, and the production design, the nostalgic feel of what it was like watching Mr. Rogers as a kid and seeing that come to life in such a beautiful but also naturalistic way. And the themes of how anyone can be as good of a person as Fred Rogers did, which is why it was so important that Rogers was not the main character. All of those vital things just had me so... It had me so dumbfounded the first time I watched it, and to this day, just thinking about it, as you can tell, it still has that effect on me. Number 3, Ford v Ferrari. This was the best movie that I saw at TIFF. James Mangold took such a unique approach in a very by-the-numbers sports biopic, because yeah, it is cliched. It is old-fashioned in the story structure of it anyways. But the racing sequences were exhilarating, they were practical, the POV shots as they were driving made it all the more intense. Christian Bale gives my favorite performance of his throughout his entire career. Matt Damon, also one of his best. And the movie itself was just fun. It was relatable. It was funny. It was sad. It was all of those things that great movies should be. Number 2, Joker. I thought Joaquin Phoenix outdid himself and You Were Never Really Here last year, but this might be my new favorite performance of his as well, because there are moments where he is so understated that he doesn't even have to say anything. There's a lot more silence than I remember, and I've seen it like 3 times already. But when he has to go full on all out, be a complete sociopath, it is haunting, it is suspenseful. Todd Phillips, I never would have expected to be as good of a director based on his previous filmography. This is such a don't judge a book by its cover project, and yeah, that is part of the theme of the movie. The themes of how you predetermine what people are going to be, and sometimes you're right, but sometimes A, that could be a bad thing, and B, that could be semi your fault for influencing them, but at the same time, the movie doesn't shy away from the fact that while there are people who influence others to make bad decisions, those others have to choose to make those bad decisions themselves. The cinematography and the musical score were characters in and of itself. The production values were outstanding. The side actors all gave as well of performances as they could have been. One of my new favorite Robert De Niro characters too, because while there are only a couple scenes where he is actually there in the movie, the dialogue that he has, especially towards the end, actually made me think about all these themes. Alright guys, we are down to it. The number 1 movie, the movie that I saw 4 times in theaters, is Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. This movie was so relaxed and so nonchalant, but I was still so invested because it's actually, in my opinion, Quentin Tarantino's least tropish movie of all time. There are scenes that rely almost to none of any dialogue whatsoever. There are scenes that rely solely on the pictures that you're looking at on screen, the production design, the set design, their costumes. And on top of that, it's just so laid back and relaxed that really anything can happen on screen, and even if you shoot it in a cinematic way, I can still really appreciate it. But there is still a decent amount of depth. A lot of depth about how an industry changes, how there are just as many good changes, if not bad. What happens to people who are innocently screwed and people who really bring a lot of doom upon themselves. Leonardo DiCaprio gives, as I keep saying in this list, one of my all-time new favorite performances from him. Same as Brad Pitt. Brad Pitt as Cliff Booth, one of my favorite characters of the year, because he is a guy who doesn't really want fame or glory. He just wants to do what he does best. He doesn't want to be in the spotlight at all, and when he does, it really aggravates him. It brings out the worst in him. The exact opposite of Leonardo DiCaprio is Rick Dalton, who wants to be remembered for really just about anything, and it isn't until later on where he realizes that he kind of already has been. Sharon Tate played very well by Margot Robbie. Yes, doesn't have a ton of lines, but it does something that every other movie that is about Sharon Tate or is based on Sharon Tate, they do something completely different. They portray her as an actress, because that is exactly who she was. This movie portrays her so much less as a victim than The Haunting of Sharon Tate, which was such a piece of shit. For the first 20 minutes, when Leonardo DiCaprio and Al Pacino are just sitting down and talking in a restaurant, and we get to see POVs of movies and TV episodes for a whole 20 minutes, I could not wipe the smile off my face, and to this day, I still can't. The finale with the Manson family was so well done, a little more metaphorical upon the free rewatches that I remember, and maybe I'll do a spoiler video and talk about it, but I won't ruin it other than it was just so amazing. And I don't really have much else to say about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood other than it's my favorite movie of the year, and it is one of my all-time new favorite movies. Guys, thank you so much for watching this best of list. Look forward to my worst of the year list. That'll be coming up very shortly. And be sure to like, subscribe, and check out my other reviews at noperfectmovie.com. Take care.